dealing with misery, if you ask me.
Tannah, you can just take the stage.
I'll try to keep it upbeat. It's all going great.
Okay, I think we're live. And some people are dialing in. Okay, well, I think we should make a start. I'm sure people will be joining as we get going. But thank you everybody for making the time and joining us today. It's great to be on this call with this esteemed panel. We're here to talk about data transformation and how that pertains directly to the CFO role. So I'll start off with a very quick intro. So I'm Matt. I'm one of the co-founders at Kleene.ai. I'm now in a non-exec role with that business and running my own data advisory consultancy called Soar Insight. Yes, topic of the conversation today, talking about data transformation and the relevance of that topic to CFOs in particular, and thinking about how to sort of get started on a data transformation journey and what that journey is all about. It can sound sort of big and intimidating, but it's all about iterative steps along that journey and how to get started. So data transformation really is the move companies have to make towards a place where data becomes an asset and a place of value rather than pain. So I think that's what we're going to be diving into and talking a little bit more about as we go through today. But it'd be great to intro everybody else on the panel. I'm going to start. I'm going to just pick on you as we go around. So I'm going to start top right. Tannah, that's you. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Tannah. I'm the CFO of Secret Food Tours. We're a global tour operator, multi-jurisdictional, multi-currency, multi-data stream. I've been trying to deal with this challenge in high-growth SMEs for many years, some successful, some not. It's a long and arduous process in trying to get key information to decision makers, and the CFO being one of them. And you're normally tasked with that role. Ultimately, I see a lot of value in how that, transforms a business. It's the process of getting there and making that as cost effective and time effective as possible is the challenge.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Tannah. Konstantin, you're next. Clockwise, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Konstantin. I'm one of the co-founders and the CFO of Payhawk. Payhawk, in essence, what we do is we help businesses manage their spend. So we are pretty big and very vocal on automation, on making everything transparent, on orchestrating the workflows that you need on one hand so that you can have the real-time visibility and control of your spend, but on the other hand, so that you can eliminate any waste and any activities that are not adding value to the finance function in general, so that you can focus on the things that really matter. And I must say, I'm a bit biased entering into this topic because, in essence, we build a product that's based on the transformational journey that the finance function is going through.
Fantastic. Great to have you on the panel, Konstantin. Thanks so much. And last but by no means least, Abigail, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Abby. I am the finance director at Biscuiteers. We are a luxury biscuit making company, so manufacturing is at the core of what we do. But a lot of my role is quickly becoming about data transformation. We are somewhat on the start of that journey. We adopted Payhawk about a year ago and are currently in conversations with Kleene about how we can get better being a data-driven company. So this seems very topical for where we're at as a business too.
Fantastic. Great range of experience in different places on that journey, the transformation journey on the panel. So it should be a really good discussion. Okay, so the first topic that we're going to dive into, I'm going to refer to my notes here. We're going to be talking about strategic alignment and CFO leadership. What I'll do is throw some questions out there and then anybody pick up the baton and run with it. So no pressure. First question. What, in your view, are the biggest challenges in leading a data transformation, and how, within that set of challenges, how do you align the financial goals and business strategy? through that execution. Anyone fancy grabbing that with both hands?
I mean, I can start. I think the biggest issue that I normally find is sort of these multiple third-party data or workflows or pieces of tech, and then you've got this vision for this all singing, all dancing tool that effectively will tell you everything and solve all your problems. The reality is it's just not that simple. And I think if you understand that it's not that simple, you can sort of understand where you need to go. You spoke about it. It's piecemeal. You have to start small. You have to understand what data you're working with in order to know where you're going to go. And if you can break that down and sort of create that process and understand it's not going to happen in 2 months, it's probably going to be a year-long project, then effectively it's going to be easier to sort of bite-size that and implement. And it normally stems from a frustration point for me, which is I know that there's benefit from this information, but I just don't know how to access it or look at it in a joined-up view, and that normally drives the inquisitive thinking of trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, that resonates strongly with what I've seen go on these journeys with various different companies. Anyone else? Anything to add?
I think something. Oh, you go ahead, Konstantin.
No, go ahead, Abigail.
I think something that I'm trying to put together is a business case. A lot of what I make others do in the companies put together a business case, where the value add's going to be, what the cost is, what the payback period's going to be. To Tannah's point, when you're unclear of the timelines of the project, what value you're going to get out of that and when, it's really hard to justify a big outlay of cost or an additional expense for some companies up front, or when they don't see what value it's going to add yet. And I think for me, it's trying to, at the moment, piece that together for the company across multiple teams of what they might be able to get out of a data transformation project that maybe isn't as tangible as we want to buy this piece of machinery, the payback on it's this, and it's going to bring this efficiency, much easier to quantify in a business like us. So I think one of the ideas I had was just how you put together a business case for this and get buy-in from the rest of the company on what value there's going to be later down the line.
Yeah, always tricky to measure those things in the absence of anything solid. Getting an idea of what the ROI will be on that is tricky. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But yeah, Konstantin, any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I fully resonate with both Abigail and Tannah. I would just add to the discussion that sometimes there's also this cultural resistance, like, hey, what we were doing up until now kind of makes sense. We don't want to engage into something new because there's a bit of a gap between usually the skill set of the people and the technology that needs to be developed. So I think people in general are a bit afraid of making this leap and making this step because there's a lot of unknown pieces that you need to put together. And there's a lot of siloed work that happens in the background that in essence you need to break through, and you need to sort of create this type of a new cultural mindset and thinking of, hey, the processes that we have today are not efficient or are not going to scale up down the road as we see, new technology coming in, and we need to be, in essence, transforming the way we use data and the way we operate internally. So I think it starts with kind of a cultural mind shift, and then you just have to go through this lengthy project in time that thinking clearly that there are going to be some unknowns that you need to tackle along the way. And usually there might be like a timeline or a plan that you have initially in place that's going to be in essence changing because there are a lot of unknowns once you start executing.
Yeah, absolutely. It immediately ends up in a change management challenge, I think, with this. I mean, like any cross-departmental project, which it inevitably will be, you have to think about how that change is managed and taking people on that journey. So yeah, that cultural piece is really important. What do you think? Question to the group, really. What do you think the signs are that a company should be thinking about going on that data transformation journey? How do you quantify that or think about that? What are the signs that people should be on the lookout for? Tannah, maybe back to you.
Yeah. it's twofold for me. How much work does it take off my desk to answer a question? So if a board member or director or an investor is coming to me and says, what's this and connected to that? And I can't really readily answer that information without doing a load of analytics. I'm like, I should be that custodian of that information. And it's putting pressure on me to then go and figure out how to get that piece of information to whoever's asking for it. That's one side of it. And then the other side is this basic hygiene factor for me. Our business scrutinizes margins. So we work on a by city basis. We look at the activity within a city. We analyze the margin of food costs and guide costs, for example, over a period of time. And if there's a drop, we need to know pretty quickly what's happening. Because if it's going to happen over 4 weeks, you're going to lose a considerable amount of money, and you need to flex something to change that. If that feedback loop isn't happening and you don't have an answer for it, you can't make that change, and there's almost instantaneous financial impact. So for me, it's like there's a basic need that I need to satisfy. And then normally pressure from the top is asking me something I can't readily answer, and that's making me selfishly look bad, right? So I want to solve for that problem.
Yeah, it can get embarrassing pretty quickly, I think, if you're because it's often the most basic things, or from the outside looking in, it seems like it should be really basic. It's actually quite complex for boring reasons. Right. So getting rid of those boring reasons is great. And yes, then of course the impetus to go on that transformation journey when you really do need those answers quickly and accurately. That's always a key driver. Anything to add to that? Maybe come to you, Abby.
I was thinking a key indicator for me is how much of our data is being generated in real time and how much of it takes manipulation or waiting for month end or waiting for some analysis to be done on it. We've really done a whole project in our dispatch department of data automation, and that's made things a whole lot more efficient. We've got dashboards up of how many parcels are being wrapped today and what's going out the building. And I think that real time aspect has seen huge savings across that department, and how we filter that through to the rest of the teams is going to be key to the next stage. So sort of how much of your data can be generated in real time behind the scenes and how much is still sort of quite static and needing to be updated or manipulated. And another one, sorry, probably to repeat what Tannah's already said, but I guess how quickly you can react to changes. Something that we encounter every day is sort of setting a plan for the month ahead of what we're going to manufacture and produce, and then landing a really big corporate order that knocks all that out the park, which is great, but it's how quickly can we change, when we've got a finite amount of capacity and capability in a month, how do we make sure, how quickly can we respond to having a big corporate order come take priority and everything else shift? Or does it take someone sitting at a spreadsheet for a whole other day to work out what has to be deprioritized? What can we risk going offline to be able to fulfill a big order? And that's coming in thick and fast at Biscuiteers. So maybe not applicable to everyone's business, but I think just how you can react quite as quickly to changes and use that data dynamically.
Absolutely, solving those happy problems of too many sales.
Yeah, like
nice. Absolutely,
it's a good problem to solve. It's a good problem to solve. I think from my standpoint, because we work in a very dynamic environment, and I think in general, the business environment now is super dynamic. So you need to have these leading indicators, these predictive insights of what's happening in real time, even to have the visibility to do some stress testing or some analysis that's very ad hoc, and it needs to be super timely. And for me, the usual indicators when something is not right is whether on one hand you cannot do this predictive analytics on a timely basis, or you have an issue with inconsistent unreliable data. And when you trace back the problem, this usually ends up either in a process that's super manual, super time consuming, and in essence slows down the decision making. So those are usually the type of indicators for me that would signal that you should invest in some type of a data transformation, and you should review all your processes and how you gather data, how fast you can analyze, and how fast you can kind of create these dashboards or these predictive indicators on the health of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. That resonates really strongly. What you've all said, actually, from my experience of taking businesses on these kind of journeys, I think what I tend to find is that all companies, sort of irrespective of what it is they're doing, what widgets they're selling to which customers, you end up in that same place, that point where you've got a bunch of operational systems that have been put in place to solve immediate operational challenges. Those operational systems are producing significant data, and that data it's an opportunity, but becomes this challenge where you're wrestling with it in spreadsheets. You're spending time, or people in your team are spending time manually extracting data, dumping it into tables in spreadsheets, and then doing VLOOKUPs and pivots and so on. And you've got this place where you probably do know the logic to get to the answers you want, but it is manual and it is prone to error. And when that becomes too time consuming, and when it, I suppose, really becomes a point where you simply cannot get to the answers in the time that you need to be getting to those answers by, where it starts disrupting your big corporate orders, or that change that happens upstream is so disruptive, that really is the point that you should be very actively thinking about this, because those things are automatable. These things are ripe for automation. The logic exists. You can codify that, and you can take that work off people's plates, get it into systems and software that solves that, and give people the time back to do what humans are good at. So I think that's a really key thing to be on the lookout for, I suppose. Okay, awesome. So moving on a little bit, if we think about, if you imagine you're at the point where you decide you do need to go on that data transformation journey, and you're in the swing of things, how would you go about sort of prioritizing and executing those data initiatives? So that's the topic we'll be covering. What's the methodology that you guys would use to identify and prioritize data projects within a data transformation journey? Throw it open to the floor. Anyone want to grab that?
Yeah, I can crack on. I think it's probably worth knowing that there isn't a silver bullet, and one size doesn't fit all. I go back to a previous point. It's actually trying to prioritize what's a necessity. So, for example, if your financial reporting is really poor for whatever reason, having a look at, revenue reconciliation for us is tricky. So finding out what that process is and figuring out if we can create a data work stream that can automate that, then, that will then open up a view into, is that process working? What's connected into that process? How do we speed that up? What data are we looking at when we've implemented that? Is that going to be beneficial for just outside the finance department? Who else in the organization can work with that information or is going to need it? So for me, this starts as sort of like a base level of what you're trying to solve. And in our instance, as I mentioned earlier, it was margin and revenue. We needed insight. We're growing business. We didn't necessarily know what the levers were. And that need then drove the project, which was like, I need to figure out a way to take multiple sources of information and multiple processes to clean that information up. How do I figure out a way to automate that? And is there a solution out there? There isn't a silver bullet, and it's not like it's going to solve everything, but it starts with that basic need, and then you build onto that.
Yeah, super fair.
I think for me, this one was, well, the easy answer is what's going to deliver the most impact is what's taking the team the most time. We sort of did a review on what are the things that take the most manual in the team. And I suppose for me, the most frustrating, our payroll still takes a lot of time. We have about 150 people on the books who work across the manufacturing floor, lots of chopping and changing. So payroll is a big beast that we need to tackle. But also going back to sort of the analogy in the first one, but our planning, how we plan, takes a lot of time. So I think the parts that I believe the data transformation will have the most impact are the things that are taking the most time, becoming the most frustrating, and the real bottlenecks to us working really efficiently. And we've sort of reviewed that as a team, and those two are at the moment the most prevalent.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, and just I can start to wander onto what people can be doing if they have that time back. What's the next thing, next set of priorities they can move on to, and the value that they get from that. So it's a double-pronged thing, really. You get the value of that process being automated and robust, but you also just get all that time back to move on to the next priority. Yeah, awesome. Konstantin.
Yeah, I would agree fully with what was said. I think it's super critical to address the things that are the most urgent, that are taking the most time. The way I would approach those is actually divide them into small steps so that you can have some quick wins early on, because usually those projects take a lot of time. So even from an incentive point or from a motivational standpoint for the team, I would divide a complex project into very small steps, and I would focus on having quick wins early on so that you can get everybody on board. They can feel empowered. They can feel that their impact is really going to change things. And usually if you get like a quick win early on, you kind of set yourself more in a position where people would be more motivated, and you have a greater buy-in for everyone to execute the change that is happening.
Yeah, it's going back to that culture thing, isn't it? If you take an audience and a set of people who are nervous about that project, and you get someone on board very quickly and show that it is capable of delivering that value, it goes an enormous way to getting people enthusiastic about what it is you're undertaking. Yeah, amazing. Speaking of, and we sort of discussed this a little bit before we started recording the webinar. What do you guys see as common pitfalls in executing their transformation? And yeah, there's lots of things to be conscious of, but yeah, what would be your top ones, and how would you go about avoiding those if you identified them?
Yeah, I mean, we're in an order here, so carry on. There's a question actually from Ashley, which relates to this. She's asked, how do you deal with lazy data users, i.e. users who just want the data to spit out an answer? It's ringing true for me. The reality is, well, first, well done, you've identified there's a problem, right? And that normally exists with a user, not a computer, and it's a person behind the scenes clicking the wrong button repeatedly, regardless of the amount of times you ask them not to do that. He, she, they. The thing, what I've done is I've just put a measure on it, just a KPI, and just started to measure the work. And I know that topic for me is the process on how to refund a client, right? I know that if they click that button, they're going to do it wrong. So just put a measure on it and go back to the team by user and went, this person's done it 15 times this month, and report that back and be like, it's creating this upstream for me, which is really problematic. The data, please, can you help me fix the process? And we just plugged on a load of KPIs. I understand that's more data to look at, but it effectively gives this feedback loop to the user. Konstantin said it. It's like, how can we get something to the people that are using this really quickly? And we actually down the road of showing them what their workflow is doing to our data quality. And that was really resonating, because they just didn't understand that if they did a refund incorrectly, it would create 3 hours of reconciliation for a member of the finance team. They were just simply pressing a button and hope it worked. Once that data feedback loop happened, all of a sudden they were understanding the ramifications on multiple buttons pressing within System X. And that became transformational for our business, because people were starting to understand the impact that was having on other people within the organization. And then the human came in, which was like, oh, I'm sorry that I've created 3 days of work for you, right? So that was really helpful for us. And that's been one of the harder parts for us, is this sort of trying to execute on this transformation process. It's not actually, people don't necessarily understand the actions and what the result is in the data that they're producing on a reporting perspective, especially within a finance team. And communicating that back to them has been super helpful.
Yeah, the upstream processes and the pain, invisible pain to that person until you expose it to them. Exposing that back is critical. Yeah, really interesting. I'm conscious of the time. We've got lots of topics to cover, but if I think about sort of that prioritization piece and think about a framework for selecting the right data projects and think about what you've all sort of contributed there. I think summarizing it, the really important thing is aligning the data projects, the data initiatives with the business strategy and the business goals. It's not a thing in isolation. It has to be, it's typically a service to that business strategy. So I think identifying that, understanding what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then think about how data unlocks that. So Abby, you talked about the time saved. Tannah, you're talking about those upstream processes that are inefficient at best and broken and wrong at worst. So identifying those things and then applying the data application of data to that is critical. And it could be anything from the development of a data product. Maybe as an organization, you've got something unique in the data that you're capturing, something that is differentiating for you within that market. And what could that data potentially augment within your product suite? What could you build from that for your customers? Then where are your blind spots? I think we've had a lot of examples of that so far. Uncovering those blind spots and shining some light. Sunlight is the best disinfectant and all of that. So I think thinking about it in that way, very logically, aligning it to those business goals, and then starting to think about the ROI on top of that is really, really critical to this. At the risk of being awfully salesy, the world's worst salesman, but I'll just throw this up on screen for everybody. So Kleene offering a complimentary data transformation strategy session. So getting on and having a chat with some of my former colleagues, those data experts, to dive into this in a bit more depth and with a bit more specificity for what you're looking at. Feel free to click on the green reserve your spot button, and you can start that conversation. Okay, moving along. Thinking about automation and operational efficiency is the next meaty topic. We're covering a lot of ground in a very short space of time, so let's see how we get on. But what practical steps, thinking specifically from a finance leader's perspective, what practical steps can a finance leader take to automate those workflows and improve spend control specifically? And maybe, Konstantin, you're probably best placed to kick this one off, actually.
Yeah, we've actually built a product around it. So I think the key thing to be really aware of is that we can now help a lot with technology when it comes to real-time visibility and control of company spend. And in essence, a lot of the manual workflows, a lot of the low value-added items on the finance team's agenda can be automated to a greater extent from doing everything in a single platform, gathering and putting all the pieces together, working with your ERP system, creating a robust framework when it comes to controls of who, how, and what needs to happen for an expense to be approved, whether you want to use like purchase orders, whether you want to use some type of cost centers, whether you want to have like a super complicated workflow of approval. And in essence, being transparent to the entire organization, automating these processes and making everyone accountable, I think is key in making the step into the data transformation journey. On the other hand, when it comes to budgeting and forecasting, which in essence is part of the controlling function as well, you have all the data in one place, so you can slice and dice, you can play with it, you can see how and to what extent you can have an impact of the cost that you're incurring today in the business and how this impacts your planning or even your cash needs or your liquidity needs on how you're tracking in the different departments in the different geographies that you operate in. I think we live in very interesting times when, in essence, a lot of those tasks would be automated, and we rely even more on different AI models that can have this predictive analytics for our business when it comes to getting all the data into a single place and really spending most of our time making sure that we are aligned with the strategy of the business and we can do the best of our effort to support it, not act as a back office, but rather be on the strategic table, not chase receipts, not being focused on the low value added stuff, but rather focus on the big picture and really analyze the data and being a good business partner.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's that move from data being, as I say, a sort of a pain into automated and then an asset on which you can build and go further using some of those modern techniques. Abby, how's about you? Have you seen any particularly good examples of sort of automating workflows in the finance space?
Yeah, not to go too sales pitchy again, but we did implement Payhawk about a year ago and we're really happy with it. It was a new software to me, but it encompassed everything we needed to do with AP, to do with credit card control, and also some of the banking and transactional cash payments. I think that I suppose the practical steps I would advise is just taking a relook at your software tools. Sometimes, and I think this is true of my finance team before I was at Biscuiteers too, is that there's all of these different software tools to solve a particular use case, and whether or not there's something else out there that could do more of that as in a single tool itself. And I think that's what we've seen add huge value through something like Payhawk. It's doing multiple things that I thought we'd need sort of 3 softwares to do. And it's sort of consolidating that. And although changing software feels like a big project alongside your data transformation, I think software's come a long way. And where you had been previously using a tool and everyone's got very familiar with using it, if it's not solving all your case, all the things you need it to, go look on the market and see if there's something else that's been developed in the meantime that's going to be much better fit for your business. And the other thing I think is key and has worked well with us at Payhawk, but a few others, is getting a really good account manager for that software tool, checking in with them regularly and understanding, you know, what new developments they're making, whether they're using AI, machine learning, automation. Could you be making your software work harder for you? And I think I'm only too quick to ignore another software update from a system that we're using. But I think getting on a call with an account manager who's really engaged and knows what your business and understands what your business is doing, you can also shape their product roadmap by saying, you know, with us, Payhawk doesn't work for this, that, the other. Are you doing anything to help solve that for me as a business? And I think pushing harder on your software systems is a really intelligent and key thing for finance leaders to be doing, to make sure that their teams are freed up to be using their time more efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that customer feedback, I'm sure Konstantin would agree, but feedback in telling that vendor what you love and what you really don't love about that product, what you wish it could do, what those use cases are that are still a frustration for you. That's how the best products get built, and that it's invaluable feedback. So yeah, definitely don't be scared of handing that back to your customer success manager, your account manager. Tannah, anything from your side? Any sort of workflows that you've had the chance to automate, or use of sort of AI ML?
Yeah, I mean, I think Abby nailed it. That, you know, have a look at what you currently use. These businesses, these software suppliers, services, they're running probably as fast, if not faster than you on their development cycle, right? And you looked at it and wanted to solve for one problem. They probably designed a whole new workflow around that issue, and it's about that relationship. So yeah, you absolutely nailed it. For me, there's a bit more of the real basic stuff is, you know, AI is only going to be as good as what you're feeding it, right? And if you can't get that baseline accurate, usable, correct, or the processes that you're doing to generate that data, then implementing and all singing or dancing AI solutions is not really going to help your business. So you need to go back to first principles and build it up. And that's quite hard because it's like ripping a Band-Aid off of something that kind of works and everyone's sort of happy with, and there's enough people to just get that work done right now. it's quite a scary thing to do, because it's a lot of extra work outside of the day-to-day, and it's very disruptive. But that, the long-term goal here is that you're effectively, you said it before, you can get people to start doing what people are good at, rather than what software and computers should be able to do. So yeah, completely agree with Abby.
Absolutely. Konstantin, give the chance to do the sales thing while I pop your offer up on screen. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that's interested into learning more on Payhawk and how we can help your business automate and have this real-time visibility and control over your company spend, we have a special campaign running for this webinar. So just click on the book now and talk to some of our representatives to see how we can best help you, start this transformational journey and being on top of your finances in real time and have this visibility and automation.
Awesome. Thanks, Konstantin. All right, final topic of the day, and we should have touched on it actually right at the top of the call. Abby, I think you sort of started to talk towards this topic, but that gnarly challenge of measuring your ROI, your return on investment, and what that means for data transformation. So again, CFO hats firmly on. How can CFOs out there on these journeys effectively measure a data transformation project? How are you thinking about that? And of course, we've touched on the sort of time that people take. But is there anything that you guys wanted to add to that ROI measurement specifically?
Yeah, we're doing an implementation with Kleene, and we've picked a sort of North Star KPI that we know if we get improvement on that based on the data transformation around that subject, which is simply margin or gross margin, we're going to add value to the bottom line. So the sell to shareholder group was, if I can effectively improve margin with greater data insights, I've paid for this. And if I can prove that out, we can renew the project effectively. So we just picked one very simple metric that everyone understood and basically built a workflow in the data transformation around making sure that we can measure that, make that really North Star in terms of communicating that outwards. And the simple math is it has a financial benefit. That you mentioned putting the CFO hat. I think there's another metric for me, which is if you take a step back and you talk to people who are creating that data and are implementing and checking receipts or whatever they're doing, is the feedback loop improving their life at all? And if they comment to that, something's not quite right. It's not only the analytics side of it, we are trying to make it a more efficient work stream. And the people, the user, the employee needs to feel that. Otherwise, they're not going to be really committed to your new singing or dancing data transformation project, right? So for me, it's a North Star metric, and then getting the people to be honest with you, is it bringing value to them? Because if they feel it, then they're going to be committed to helping that process move forward.
Yeah, I love that clarity of thought. Just knowing what it is that you're setting out to achieve from the get-go, aligning things to a number. Knowing that you are making change and you should see that change flow through to that number. And maybe it isn't margin, maybe it's return on ad spend, maybe it's effectiveness of sales funnel, whatever it is that you're aiming that initiative at. Yeah, really good thoughts. Anything to add, Konstantin, Abby?
I fully agree. As a finance people, it all comes down to either you're reducing costs or you're increasing the revenues, or maybe a combination of the two. So I fully agree it needs to be measurable, and usually you end up there. Yes, if you're doing something meaningful, that's going to have an impact either on the cost side or either on the revenue side. So either you have more time and you eliminate any friction with your customers so that you can close more deals, you can prospect more, or you can, in essence, close bigger deals. Or in essence, you're fixing something on the operational side, or maybe in the funnel where the process is not optimal. It's far from optimal, and it can be done in a more efficient way, where in essence it could be faster and it could be cheaper. So I think it all comes down to either you're reducing costs or you're increasing the revenue at the end of the day.
Yeah, super simple. And Abby, maybe a slightly different question. Of course, please do add to that if you've got other thoughts. But what do you see the impact of all of this that we're talking about, the data transformation, the automation, the application of data to business-wide initiatives? What impact do you see that having on the CFO role, and where do you see that sort of evolving to?
Tricky question.
Sure.
But I think for me, is the CFO is becoming sort of the broader business leader, and focusing perhaps more on the non-financial data, not so head in the accounts, although that information obviously very important, but it's having that non-financial data at your fingertips too, from how the teams are performing in a more broader business sense, rather than just how we're performing financially. And so obviously we're already on that journey, but I think that will continue in the next sort of 5 years as the CFO role evolves.
Love that. Yeah. CFO getting their time back to stop being buried in spreadsheets and start thinking about the impact on the business. Amazing. Yeah. So I think quantifying financial impact of data initiatives it's always a tricky thing, because ultimately as a data person, you could sit there and say, well, I've implemented this data project and therefore I'm going to take credit for everything, because everybody's using data for every decision within the business. Every marketing campaign is determined by data, and et cetera. But and there's truth to that. But I think the critical thing is really being specific about what it is you're trying to impact. Konstantin, I love the simplicity of the approach. You're increasing revenue, you're reducing costs. One way or the other, you're impacting the bottom line, and that's what these things have to be all about. But just have a think about the time spent by people, because time is time is money. It's true. People spending time doing things they could be spending doing other things. So if people are sitting around doing manual data extraction, faffing around with spreadsheets, doing VLOOKUPs, correcting the VLOOKUP because they didn't carry the one or whatever it is, that stuff is not valuable, and it is automatable. So automate that stuff. Think about how you can bring software to bear on those kind of challenges, and then allow yourself to start thinking about where people would be better off spending their time. And love that summary, Abby, from the CFO's perspective of where you would envision that time being spent to better value. So yeah, I think fantastic discussion. I'd love to throw this open to any questions. We obviously had one from Ashley earlier. Thanks, Ashley, for that. Any other questions, please do just throw them in the chat, and we can have a stab at answering them. But yeah, any other thoughts on, I suppose, Tannah and Konstantin, where do you think the CFO role goes from here? If we are able to automate these things and bring some efficiency to a lot of those manual processes, do you see it going the way that Abby's outlined there?
If the CFO role evolves anymore, I'm not sure we can call them the Chief Financial Officer. We do a lot, right? We've got a lot of multiple hats in a business, and it's going to continue to evolve. I think the point of the data transformation, the point of software solutions like Kleene and Payhawk is that they're actually, getting a CFO outside of just crunching numbers and doing P&L and balance sheet management accounts. They're elevating you, as Abby said, into this custodian of information around the business and bringing that alive to multiple people. And if you actually embrace that and get your head out of the P&L for a little bit and start to understand the impact, and accept that once you do a data transformation project, it's probably going to need to be redone a year later. This is the evolution of what we're dealing with. There's more information, it's more rapidly at your fingertips, it's more easy to access, it's harder to analyze because there's so many multiple work streams, there's so many multiple pieces of tech. If you can embrace that, then effectively you're going to be able to be more and more successful, and try and get the other stakeholders in the business to understand that and then be sympathetic towards it, because the more impact that you have around numbers outside of the P&L, the better value it's going to bring the business in the long run.
I'm back. I have no idea how far I got on my incredible monologue there. Really sorry, you guys missed out on some absolute gold. I was talking to myself for some time, and you'd all frozen on my screen and sort of really kind of, that's making some good points, kind of looks on your faces. So yeah, I was none the wiser for a while. I hope the discussion in my absence was good. Throwing it open to any questions, please do get questions in the chat if you have any. But yes, otherwise, thanks so much, guys, for taking the time today. Big meaty topics. We scratched the surface, but a lot more to go at. So do get those bookings in with Payhawk and Kleene and continue the discussion. Jonathan, would you classify data transformation projects as CapEx expenditure or OpEx in your business case ROI? Ooh, great question. Thank you, Jonathan. Who wants to say that one?
There is, right? Yeah, we this is a hot topic for us at the moment, because we're starting a first statutory audit, so it's slightly more scrutiny. I think, don't quote me on this, but generally speaking, the software as a service is not a CapEx, it's an expense. And the implementation of that project, so the professional services around that is more acceptable as a CapEx item. It's hard to justify software spend as CapEx. It's more the design around that and the impact that you put in. So I hope that answers your question. It's not clear cut. Everyone has slight nuance. To work with your auditors and your accountants and see what's acceptable to their common practices. But that's generally how I've done it previously. I don't know about you, Abby.
I'd agree. Yeah, I'd have the software sat as an expense and then capitalize on the actual development part of the project.
Completely. I think that makes sense, right? It's project versus ongoing commitment, and I think it's an important thing to highlight. Actually, your data transformation is never done. You are embarking on a journey that then it's a living, breathing platform that you're building within the heart of your business, just alongside your business strategy. So as your business strategy changes, you may need to add data sources, change transformations, etc., etc. But certainly the initial setup of that, the implementation of the software that empowers that ongoing change, that is absolutely a project that I think you should definitely be capitalizing. Easy for me to say as not a CFO again. Any other questions for anyone? If not, we can wrap up there.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Well, Tannah, Konstantin, Abby, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for dialing in. And yes, watch this space. Get in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with, and enjoy your data transformation journeys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out, please, just grab me on LinkedIn or various other. I'm a long, painful data transformation CFO, so I can share some insights and what not to do. Right, so happy to share that with anyone. Over beer, preferably.
I'll sign up. Yeah, I'll be on that, Tannah.
Great.
You guys.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.